So, I did my little comedy piece about, losing my mustard. And mainly that was because I had posted something on the game box about how much that was pissing me off that I couldn't get the mustard out of my mustard bowl. And I guess some people, at least one person I know, commented with, "Oh gee, I thought you lost a family pet," until I realized you were essentially trolling or something. It wasn't. I mean, I don't know what I'm doing. But in this case, I've suffered a real loss, but again, it was of an object. Now, I've suffered real human losses or pets. Pets mean less to me. In this case, though, my computer died. Uh, it's funny, every time I lose or fuck up a computer, which has happened a couple of times, I get so incredibly frustrated when I fuck it up. And I can, even if I can repair it, it's horrible. The very first time I had a computer, my first computer still works. It's a TRS-80 Level 1 Model 1. I can set it up, turn it on, and it works fine from, I don't know, I guess, before 1980. And it's kind of amusing that works. My next computer actually works as well, as far as I know. I have no idea. It's in my mom's basement along with a couple others. It was originally a Windows 95 build that my brother had, and one of my first bad experiences with a computer was with that one, where other than programming projects that didn't work, I didn't like all the crap Windows had in it. And I thought, well, I don't use a lot of this. And I just deleted a bunch of stuff, and then my operating system stopped working. Luckily, at that point, my wife back then, I think we were married already, through her school, UB, was able to get free software from Microsoft. And I got not only a Windows 98 operating system backup disk, so I could install that on the computer, and it worked fine with that. I liked 98 actually. But also things like a Visual Studio from back in that era and some other cool stuff that I thought I'd screw around with programming. I'd already been screwing around with some Perl programming before that. And it was kind of neat, But for a couple of days, when I had destroyed my machine's operating system, I was so upset. Now, I didn't really need the thing. I was using it for some editing that it wasn't really doing a very good job for. And I ended up just having it as a game box and, at that point, an internet machine. Game box, it was already quite a bit out of date at that time. I was playing Red Baron and King's Quest and stuff like that my brother had left on it. And maybe also some stuff that I pulled down from Underdogs, which was pretty big at the time. But it was very frustrating, but I ended up fixing it. And then at some later date, my father managed to get a hold of computers from work that were being decommissioned. They held sort of a tag sale of all their computers to sell them to the students, and he bought one for me there, I think, or else he bought one for himself and gave me his old one. I'm not sure what the situation was. I think he bought one for each of us. One for him as a reserve and one for me. And we're talking $10, but he was coming up to visit. Threw it in the back of the truck, brought it up, and I switched to that. He brought back my brother's computer, which is now down in the basement as well. And maybe getting the timing wrong on this, but anyway, I had a newer computer, which had Windows 98, and I ended up switching to ME for some reason. I don't remember what happened. I had some problem. I had second edition 98. Again, a frustrating issue, but my computer was still there. The next computer I had was, I had a series of these that were the same in different locations. But the next computer that I really had for me, actually, I think another one of my brother's computers came up to replace the one. I think the whole school one was a later situation, which got me a backup computer at my dad's place. But I ended up buying, as I finished up my second undergrad degree, I ended up buying a Dell laptop. And I was pretty happy with that. I mean, it was more powerful than the desktops I had at the time available to me, because they were all out of date, always. Actually, my brother's old computer was still, not the first one, but the second one was still the best computer I had in terms of having a decent graphics card and everything, until I got the laptop. And this is just integrated graphics and everything, but I could play like GTA on it and stuff, and it was reasonably fast and playable. And I could play the Europa Universalis computer game and things like it. And I brought that with me to grad school, and I was, fairly happy with it. It was good in my kind of almost dorm-like life, where I would have to haul a computer with me to work at school, to get away from the noise initially, and then later it was still kind of nice because I could haul it out to the living room where it was more comfortable, but lock it up in my bedroom, depending on what my living situation. I was in a 2-bedroom place, but for the first year without anyone living with me, which was cool. When I moved here, I don't know what convinced me, but I decided I'm going to get me a nice new computer because I'm working, and I couldn't play games or anything on it, on what I had, but I was still in a little apartment, smaller than what I have, basically a real efficiency type place. And I went out and I bought my Toshiba, which to me was a wondrous thing. I loved it. 17-inch screen. I almost bought another one for about the same price. They're around $350 still. Although probably well out of date. Although they may have upgraded the equipment on when you find them on sale. And it was a really, really nice machine for me. The big screen meant that I had most of what I needed for a desktop. It had reasonable graphics and power, etc. for a laptop. At the time, it was a more expensive machine at the time, and but I got it still cheap. I got it on an incredible sale, I think. I think it was like a $700 machine, and I got it around $400 at the time. Now it's for like $350. And would probably have suited all my purposes. I can watch movies and shoot TV and porn, and I can play most games that I wanted to play for the most part. However, I fed it some tea, and it was the first computer that died on me, and I needed a new computer. And I went out and I'm not going to bring it out here, but I got a big HP desktop. I said, I live in an apartment. I'm never moving my computer except to take it to bed to wank, right? I don't really need that. I can set up, my desktop for that. Not for wanking, but for everything else. And that way I've got something that, could be a good gaming machine. I went to go get another laptop. I wanted to get another like the Toshiba. I went to Fry's, which is where I got it, and they had nothing like it for sale. They had these weird things that were like just a screen, and they were really expensive because they were the new hot thing at the time. And I don't even know what they're called, but they were kind of the equivalent to laptops. And then they had smaller laptops. And the just a screen gave you all the disadvantages of a laptop in that everything's integrated in the box. But you kind of needed to plug in external pieces. And it didn't strike me as terribly easy to move around or anything. It seemed like a real step down from the laptops. And if I'm going to take that, for less money, I was able to get a more powerful desktop. And the HP I got, it's a Pavilion, came with a quad core, which, at that point was kind of a big deal. But it was fairly cheap. I didn't understand why, except it had integrated graphics. It turns out it's an HP built machine, and HP usually kind of goes on the cheap end on everything. But somehow, for some reason, they threw a quad core on this. A very powerful chip at that point. And the bus and everything was all kind of slow, which I couldn't easily fix, but eventually, over time, when The Witcher 2 came out, I couldn't really run it on my machine. I looked at the specs and I said, yeah, this isn't going to work very well. So I went out and spent about as much as on a computer on a graphics card. So now I've got this powered up graphics card on this machine that's kind of iffy otherwise. And I also got some more hard drive. I didn't get more internal memory, which probably was a mistake. That would have helped a lot. I felt very badly about losing the Toshiba though, because I had software on it that I wanted, that, yeah, I could reproduce it and put it all on the new machine, but it never quite worked right. And what I ended up doing was seating the hard drive from the Toshiba in the HP as my second drive. But then I ended up saying, look, I need more memory than I have when I started doing these videos. And I think the first thing I bought was an external terabyte drive, and it was like, that's not enough. So I went out and bought another one. I'm like, a terabyte, man. People used to, right? I bought another one to install inside the machine because the laptop drive was tiny, both in size and in memory. And when I swapped them out, my laptop drive, I said, well, fuck it, let me see. I don't know what's happened. I dropped it into the laptop, and the laptop started working. And that lasted for about a year, and then it kind of died again and hasn't woken back up. I'm not sure what's wrong there. Again, I think there's so many options, and it's hard to get inside the laptop. I couldn't find, without prying it apart completely, I can't get at the jumpers, so I can't test the BIOS on that. So anyway, the Pavilion's working. I end up getting the graphics card for it. I end up souping it up a little bit, and I'm pretty damn happy with that. Even after the Toshiba dies, hey, that's sad. It was nice to have a second computer, especially I could put it in here while I'm setting up a game or something, and listen to something that's online. That was probably the biggest use for it, but also being able to, pull it into bed with me. But that, it wasn't that big a deal to lose it finally. And now this thing, damn, I lost it for no good reason. It's had problems. Every time there's a damn Windows update, something happens. Even before I got the video card in there, where sleep wouldn't affect it well. And I think it has to do with a motherboard that's kind of out of date, this, that, and the other, and just drivers not being updated but using things that Windows didn't promise or something like that. And every now and then it would get itself fixed, but it was pretty bad at that. So I'd have situations where, like, it would go to sleep. I would put it to sleep, and then, like, at one point, the onboard graphics, or no, the Ethernet would continuously be shutting down every time I put it to sleep. And I actually ended up having to buy an Ethernet card because I couldn't get it restarted at one point. But then I did before I installed it. I got a dongle at the same time and used that to use my Wi-Fi as kind of an emergency because I didn't want to install it. So now I've got an extra Ethernet card kicking around. That's a little faster, but I didn't want to install. But anyway, what I was seeing in this last time was the fans, whenever I restarted the machine, whenever I started the machine, if it was either turning it on or when I put it to sleep, it wouldn't power up. And what I eventually found was happening after I opened it up was that it was starting up, the fans were running for about a couple seconds, and then they would stop. And wisely, there's some kind of thing to prevent the CPU from overheating there, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Because that's where the eventual effect, I think, happened. So I promised myself not to turn it off, but obviously that's not going to work. I'm going to have to install an update at some point or another. Now, maybe that will be the update that fixes this. While I was looking online, they said, hey, the reason I found out about the fans was they said, hey, try to jump the BIOS. Well, I had to unplug too much to try to do that, so I kind of said, well, screw that. To try to reset the BIOS, and maybe that would help the situation. And I don't think that's what it was. I think it's a driver situation, but anyway. Then I moved it to hibernate. And I thought, well, maybe this will work, and I gave that a quick test, and it worked fine, but it didn't always fail. And then I left it overnight in hibernate a couple days ago, just to see, again, because I'm used to, okay, look, it didn't start up, but after 4 or 5 tries, after an hour or whatever, it would eventually start. I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't think it was going to be terribly wrong. It just stopped. 2 days ago, it just basically stopped. And I went into complete freakout mode because, one, I kind of use it during my work. I can't do work on it directly, but I can research stuff on it. That's gotten to be less important because I have a decent-sized monitor for work now. But I'm not allowed to plug any elements into my work computer, so for good reason. But anyway, I went. I'm going kind of batshit here, and in the middle of work, I decided to take it apart to see what's going on there because I just it was. I'm having the same kind of feelings as I do whenever my computer breaks. Like I did when my ex-wife told me it's over. It's like, oh my God, this is such an important part of my life. What can I do? How can I possibly cope without it? Now, this is going to be, I think, less long-lasting of a pain, but given that the Toshiba, it took me about 6 months or so to kind of get over it, but then it worked again, which I did not expect after the amount of tea I gave it. So anyway, I open it up, and I finally decide I'm gonna try, dealing with the BIOS here, and I pull out the graphics card, this, that, and the other. I've also cleaned the dust out a couple of times recently, which may have been the error, because I sprayed the shit out of it. Maybe some liquid from the dust can stayed in it or something. Anyway, what I start to notice is kind of a smell of ozone coming from the CPU fan. I have to look everything up online to kind of figure out, because I'm not at all used to, I can put in a hard drive, I can put in a graphics card now, but I've never dealt with the motherboard itself or any of the elements that are, kind of directly attached to it. And that started worrying me. And what I'm thinking now is that, one of those times when the fans didn't start, it's like playing Russian roulette, and eventually the CPU took its bullet and burned out, because it does kind of stink down there. It has this. My first thought was all the dust did it. I don't think so, because I've looked at I looked at horror story machines that came into the shop, but man, they're just like filled with dust. And mine wasn't like that, but there was a decent amount of dust in the CPU fan, which maybe that did it, but it doesn't make a lot of sense because I wasn't seeing any issues with overheating while it was running. It was only on startup, and it was this shut the fan down. It may have contributed to the problem, though, that there was this layer of dust there. Like the heat built up faster than the fan shutting off could save it, or whatever. But anyway, then I just go into this. My God, what am I going to do? And I'm still there. I've ordered a replacement machine that should be better in terms of the motherboard and some of the components. Doesn't have enough USB ports, but whatever. I think it's got 5, which is one less than I had, and I was running kind of short. I've got a hub, but yeah, it was. It was kind of devastating, and I'm still really depressive, and I don't know how I'm going to cope with getting everything that I want onto there. I could drop the new hard drive in. I can drop the hard drive off my old computer into this one and move stuff over. But that doesn't install stuff, and some of the stuff I have may be of questionable origin, and some of it may not be so questionable, but there's a lot of work involved in figuring out what I have, getting everything configured right. Some stuff with lots and lots of add-ons that, I found here, there, and everywhere to it. And so in a way, no matter what, I think I'm going to be lacking a lot of the things that I kind of liked off my computer. The other thing is, I was considering doing this, pulling the Toshiba hard drive back out with the old machine, disconnecting. I have like this 2 terabyte hard drive on there that I don't basically use. I bought it to put videos on, and I decided, wow, that fills up real fast. It doesn't make sense, and now I don't need that much memory for anything except archiving my videos, and I need way more for them. So what I ended up, and I figured, okay, YouTube maybe won't lose my videos anymore. They've lost a few. What I figured I'd do is pull the little hard drive out and pull the stuff off my Toshiba that I still want. Now I've got 2 computers worth of stuff that I kind of need to pull off other computers, and then try to figure out how to get it to, run on this other machine, which sometimes involves copying registry entries and stuff like that, and it's really a tough job. And to get it to run without the hard drive that's currently in place, it's not like I can just fix a problem after I find it. And it might just be easier to try to identify the few things that I really want and reinstall them all, but I don't know if I can get everything. So yeah, and there's this, there's this sadness every time I see the old computer sitting there. It's like looking at, I don't know, a dead body or something, and I can't throw it out. It's got lots of useful shit in it. Not the graphics card anymore. I'm probably going to try to get that onto the new computer because I think it's better than the new computer's graphics card. But the new computer has an external has a discrete graphics card, and I think it can run 2 graphics cards. I'm not sure if the 2 are compatible. And there might be power or heat issues there. I've got a good power source. I've got another spare power source that's not so good. I might end up trying to figure out if I could run 2 power sources on the computer. Not both in the box, obviously, but I can have one sitting external. There's no reason not to do that. Just because I was having trouble with my HP. I bought a power source that was fine, supposedly, but it seemed like power was the problem for my drives. So I was going without any, without an optical drive at all, because I couldn't have both hard drives connected and the optical. I think I could have the little hard drive connected. But the problem is I think I did the 2 things at once. I think I put the hard drive and the graphics card in at the same time. Once I put the graphics card in is when I no longer had that power. And that thing is a beast, and it really drains power. So I might well end up trying to run 2 separate power sources to the machine just to keep the graphics card running. It's also noisy. Anyway, the thing is, for me, the emotions that, and it's because of, being a tard and all, the emotions that I have towards objects are very much the same as the emotions I have towards people. It's funny, though, because when my car died, I mean, I went through the, oh, fuck, what do I do? When I wrecked it. When it died, too. Although there I could just call the tow truck and get that handled with. And that kind of fixed itself within a couple of days. But when I got in an accident, it was probably fixable. It was drivable as is, but needed a new radiator and headlights. But I could never have something that worked quite as well as it did, and who knows what happens when you get in a wreck. So it got towed to a junkyard. I went to the junkyard, and there were a couple of body places, repair shops nearby. I went and asked them about it, and they're like, it's going to cost you more than $1,000. Now I bought the damn thing for about $1,000. I put $1,000 of repair in it to get the struts job done. And I hated having it. Like, the fact that I had to get it repaired regularly, that it was this not in terms of, I'm just talking about normal servicing, having to get it to deal with the oil and shit like that. I don't have the room to kind of store the stuff that I need for it in addition to all the other crap that I store. So it made sense to me to, spend $50 a year or whatever on getting it serviced. But the hassle of taking it somewhere to do that, and somewhere fairly far and all that just was draining on me. I hate driving, and it was making my life miserable. So I just walked away from that. And that was a very easy decision. That was an easy decision, kind of like coming to Phoenix. Even though I loved Eugene, oh, well, I have to do this. I need a job. Here's a job. I can go. I've got this. It's a real job. Boom. I mean, while I was in Eugene, I was, man, I was going into places. I went into I got one job there outside of the university. I went to interview at a couple of places, but I got one job there, which was with this VoIP place. And it was a total scam. I found out later, but at the time, the guy's offering me like $8 an hour, to start converting over C code to C++ code. And I'm like, well, look, that's fine while I'm kind of learning what I'm doing, but I expect, some kind of reasonable amount of money if it all works out. So I started working with him, and I never got a paycheck. I was kind of like, well, if you're not going to pay me, I'm not going to keep working on this. And so I just stopped. I basically stopped dealing with them at all, and they asked me to bring their cell phone back. So, you know, I put in a few hours of work. They didn't get anything out of it. I didn't get anything out of it. But it was like, well, you're not offering me enough. Actually, I gave them some help rewiring stuff in their office, which I'm kind of pissed that I didn't get paid for. But my feeling was just, if you're not going to pay me, screw you, man. You know, I find out that one of the guys, the guy I was working with to help install stuff in their office, he worked there for like 4 months and didn't get paid. Dude, why didn't you tell me? You know, I don't mind you being an idiot, but let me know that you're being an idiot here. Yeah, that was a pretty goofy situation. So anyway, you know, I was having a horrible time finding work there, and ended up coming here, and I was pretty happy initially until like dancing dried up, and it was never as good, and one gets tired of the desert, I'll tell you that much. And the desert itself isn't bad, and the weather here is wonderful in terms of being able to go out swimming any time of year, and you know, all that kind of stuff. The fact that it's never unpleasant weather out means that, I mean, when it's raining or something, it's beautiful. It means that I never feel guilty, so I like that. But Phoenix sucks. I mean, it's an unpleasant town. It's I don't know. You need a car to get anywhere. I can get downtown on the train, but there's never anything downtown. Tempe looks exciting. You know, I go down to Mill Street and it looks all exciting and happening. But when it comes down to it, there's nothing I really want there. When I first got here, there was a coffee shop that looked kind of neat, but they didn't allow smoking inside. It's against the law here. So it didn't really pull me in, and now all there is a Starbucks or whatever. And there's plenty of bars, but they're all there for kind of the college student, and they're either clubs or just sports bar type things. There's just nothing, and the clubs are all, you know, when I say clubs, I mean they're all playing modern crap. I think it's a place I go to that I kind of like. They have good music once a month or whatever. But there's nothing. There's not the kind of spirit that there was in downtown Eugene, and there's nowhere around here that's like that. There's no cluster of like, you know, 4 or 5 places that have live bands all within a couple blocks of each other that I can go to. If I'd walk a decent distance, or I would have when I first got here, to be in such an area, but there's almost nowhere where there's more than 1 or 2 bars nearby. They just closed one of the ones that I used to like. That was actually one of the better venues here, and it's just it gets tiresome. But I don't know. I guess I've babbled long enough. But I just wanted to kind of share some of this because, well, for one thing, I've been kind of offline for a while. Not too long, just a couple days. But also, for whatever narcissistic reason, I think people are interested in the insight into, you know, who I am, what I think, stuff like that. I don't know why. I mean, this is how I am when I'm talking with people, too, right? You know, if I'm hanging out with people, I usually, it's not like I talk continuously. If they're willing to talk, I like that. But I'm willing to talk continuously if they seem interested at all. And Mr. Camera seems very interested. His eye is always on me, and I like that. All right, let's set this up.